So first and foremost, this will not be a PG podcast, and major spoilers are ahead. My name is WildGirl13, but I'm better known as Vanna. I have no in-depth knowledge of coding, game design, or even writing stories for games. But I am a longtime creative writer and story reader, and none of my opinions are professional. I'm just doing this for possible story writers in the future that need to talk about awesome aspects of stories and, well, fun. Without further ado, Guild Wars 2's story. To those that don't know, MMORPGs are massively multiplayer online role-playing games, and I'll be referring to Guild Wars 2 as GW2. I will also be rephrasing MMORPG to MMO throughout this podcast. Now, I'm going to preface this entire story with I have not played Guild Wars 1, which is a crying shame, and I really need to figure out how to play that, because if their story is anything like Guild Wars 2, I'll probably let it. So Guild Wars 2 has very unique gameplay aspects, as in what we talked about last time, which was SWTOR, and other games like World of Warcraft. You can kind of leave your computer for a little bit and come back and you'll be fine. But in Guild Wars 2's case, it's a more, I don't want to say in-depth, but in-depth play. You have keybinds to dodge, which are space, or action roll if you want to call it that. So V to dodge. So you'll occasionally still do like block and parry and stuff. That'll still come up. But you can actually physically dodge whenever you need to, and it's pretty fun. Another aspect of Guild Wars 2 that not many MMOs that I've seen do is they have a main storyline called the quests, I guess. But to level up, you go through hearts or events. Hearts are basically, here's a general area, complete the task for this heart in this general area, fill up the heart, and then you can go buy something from the heart vendor, or you can just go to the next area. It's, I guess if you know MMOs, it's a lot more grindy of a game than most others. You just don't go travel to one place and get a XP for talking to another dude. It's a lot of, okay, actually do work here. The story is sometimes walk across the world and go talk to somebody and get XP, but the hearts will never be like that, and that's not the main way of leveling. Guild Wars 2 also boasts world versus world versus world, player versus player, the Miss, which I think is, I've never actually played in the Miss, but I'm pretty sure it's basically a all-out PvP, maybe a tournament type thing. They also have dungeons, and they have fractals, which, if I am thinking correctly, the fractals are raids, which I've actually never done any of them, and I'm really sad I haven't, but I don't have a guild for it. And there's also crafting, obviously. There's exploration. There's world bosses There's a terrain of world bosses, which is hilarious. There's timers for them. But we're going to be focusing on is the storyline as best as I can. But before I go into it, I do want to say I did initially write out a outline for Dormag versus Enzoth, like I said that I was gonna do in the last podcast. It wasn't gonna turn out to be a really great podcast, so I scrapped it and just went with Guild Wars 2 story entirety, because Guild Wars 2 has a, I don't want to say unique storyline, because it's not super unique, but the way they do it is fun. So, before I go completely into it, there are 6 elder dragons of the world of Tyria. Tyria is obviously the world that we're playing on in Guild Wars 2. There is Primordus, who is the dragon of fire and conflagration. A mysterious, maybe water dragon that starts with an S. Jormag, which is ice and persuasion. Zaitan, which is death and shadow. Krokatoric, which is shadow and fury. And Mordramoth, plant and mind. In Guild Wars 1, I don't know if it was actually done in the game. I assume it was. There was a group, or a guild of adventurers called Destiny's Edge. It was Logan Thackeray, Aristogalkin, Zoja and Snaff. My brain is blanking. Kaith and Ritlock Brimstone. Those 6, with the help of Glint. I don't remember if she was a lieutenant of Krokatoric or not, but she was an offspring of Krokatoric who was cured by the Forgotten, which are snake people. It's a whole thing. They faced off against Krokatoric to kill him and failed. And Snaff and Glint were both dead in it. So, that's a bit of a backstory. I cannot for the life of me remember if this is what made the other dragons wake up from their eternal sleep or something else. But the dragons are awake now, and they're trying to eat the magic of the world like they do every cycle. So that's where they find us, which is the main dragon that's attacking us in the vanilla storyline, or expansion 0 as I call it, is Zaitan, which, as I just mentioned, is the dragon of death and shadow. He actually has a pretty cool character model. I can't talk. But when you begin the quest, you have up until 20. Yes, 20. You have a unique to your character storyline. So you'll either start as a Sylvari, which is a plant person, a Char, who is a cat bull. I'll throw a picture up. An Ashura, which is a cross between Stitch and a rat. A human, because humans. And a Norn, which is like tall humans, but Nordic. It's probably the best description you're gonna get out of me for that one. But you can choose the first how you interact, so each one will have different options. So like if you choose human, you can actually choose between being poor, commoner, or nobility. If you're Norn, you can choose who the spirit of the wild that blessed you was, which was snow leopard, bear, wolf, or raven. If you're Nasura, you choose between which college you grew up in, which is... Oh, can I remember them? I'll throw a picture of the three up. Char, you choose which legion you're in. Blood Legion, Iron Legion, or Ash Legion. And then if you're Sylvari, what time you woke up. So cycle of night, dusk, dawn, or noon. I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but it's kind of hard. After you get past the level 20 storyline quests and you get up to level 30, you will be asked by your representative of the city, aka which person from Destiny's Edge is there. So either Logan will ask the humans for the queen, Hurtlock will talk to the Char for the Imperator, Kaith will talk to the Sylvari for the Pale Tree, Era will talk to the Norn for the... Oh, what's his name? Newt White Bear, that's his name. And Zoja will talk to the Sura on behalf of the Arcane Council. Yeah. And then there you will choose between the 3 over-encompassing orders of the world of Tyria, which is the Vigil, the Order of Whispers, and the Dermot Priory. You'll do a couple of quests for them each, and then choose which one you want to join permanently. From there, you will do a couple of quests with the order member that you meet with. For the Vigil, it is Forgel. I forgot his last name. Forgel Kernson, that's his name. The Order of Whispers, it is Tibble Swiftpaw. And the Priory, it's Siren? I think her name is Siren. I should know this. I've played this so many times. From there, you will find in their respective ways that there is an Orion Scout in Lion's Arch, which is basically the Dalaran of Tyria. It's the old pirate hub. It's kind of the neutral zone. It's a big place where, you fight back the Orion Scout, and you head for Claw Island with your companion from the Orders to try and warn them that there's an attack coming, and unfortunately they are not prepared for it. And they get basically wiped out. But on Claw Island you meet a Sylvari by the name of Traherne. He is one of the firstborns. And his calling, if you will, they're called Wild Hunts, but their calling is to cleanse Ore, which is an old human kingdom that fell underwater, which I'll explain in a bit. Traherne and you barely make it out alive with a couple of other stragglers, but Forgel, Siren, or Tybalt will sacrifice their lives so that you can escape. So I'm gonna pause that story there for a second. There used to be 5, 6 over-encompassing empires of the human race. The main one was Ore. Their main capital city was the city of Ara, where the human gods used to reside. Now the only one that's left in that little area, because it used to be Ore, Ascalon, and Kryta. The only one that remains now is Kryta. Ascalon was destroyed by the Char, and Ore fell beneath the waves after a mage did it to make sure that the Char didn't kill them. I don't know. It makes a lot more sense when they're talking about it. Now don't get me wrong. Ore is gorgeous and I love it. Back to the story. Traherne and you head for the Mother Tree, or the Pale Tree at the Grove. Talk to her about the future. She shows you what could happen in one of the futures, which And then after that, during which Traherne is gifted a thorn from the pale tree, this magical sword by the name of Caladbolg. And yeah, now Traherne the necromancer has a sword, and yeah, it's fun. You then run for your headquarters of your Vigil Whispers or Priory to protect it from an Orient raid, because once killed by Orient Zhaitan minions, what they know, the dragon knows, so now your orders are in danger. You save them, and then you manage to convince the leaders of yours and then the other two to meet and then fight for Claw Island, and you win. Traherne is presented the leadership of this new agreement between the three orders. He becomes the Pact Marshal. Pact is the new thing. And then you, the character, become the commander of the Pact. And that's your title for life, apparently. You take the fight to Orr, fight all the way around it, fighting the eye, the mouth, and then finally cleansing Orr. And then without Traherne, you meet up with Destiny's Edge again. I take the fight to Zhaitan and kill Zhaitan. And at the end of this, my favorite song out of all the songs I've been introduced to so far plays, which is Fear Not This Night. And no matter how many times I listen to it, it is my favorite song. And yeah, so I'll put a link of that in the description. So that's the vanilla. That's the expansion 0 of Guild Wars 2. Now, unfortunately, the next part of this, which is expansion 1, Heart of Thorns, started with a Living World series of events, which I only did a very, very small part of, because it was at a time that was on and off Guild Wars 2. I wasn't playing very much. But basically, a Sylvari by the name of Scarlet brought together the Nightmare Court, the Flame Legion, and the Dredge, I think is were the three. Maybe the Aether Blades too, but I can't remember. And Cosmam destroyed Lion's Arch, and Scarlet when we did raid and did kill her, it was too late, and a drill that she set up in the middle of Lion's Arch hit a ley line and sent a pulse of ley line magic around Tyria and woke up Mordremoth. So yay. Along the way, in Living World 1, you met Brahim Erison, son of Aristogoken, Casimir Mead, an ex-noble, Marjorie Delacroix, an ex-ministry guard, Rox, Gladium, and Jaime, who is a chronically ill Assuran. And then I guess you kind of met Canuck, but he was not really super in it. Who is this kind of hard to please asshole that you love him by the end of the time you're meeting him. He's a Sylvari. So the part that is not, it's technically still Living World, but it's Living World Season 2. You go into Maguma Forest. Jungle. Oh. You first go to this very deserty place called Drytop, where the Zephyrites, who are independent humans that follow the teachings of Glint, but are not ascended to Fallen, So they had the power sort of it, but not really. It's a little hard, but they're followers of Glint. Um, had their giant, I don't call it a Zeppelin, but it's a moving city. Um, Sabotaged by a Sylvari by the name of Aaron, I think his name was, which you're following for. And while you're making your way through Drytop, you are looking for the Master of Peace, who is the leader of the Zephyrites. And after you make sure that he's okay, you find that Scarlet, who was the start of all this, actually had a lair in Drytop. So you kind of look for clues and stuff. And we learn that she knew where a leyline hub was. And Omad, who was a Ashura, who was her mentor, eventually just kind of disappeared, or died under mysterious circumstances, was also there at the leyline hub. And he not necessarily forced Scarlet into a machine, but basically she ended up in the machine where she saw what the Ashura called the Eternal Alchemy. And that drove Scarlet crazy. So she killed Omad. But then, yeah, while this is all happening, and we're getting these kind of things, we learn that Mordramoth is attacking the waypoints because they're connected to ley lines. And Fort Salma and Fort Concordia. Concordia is controlled by the Pact. Salma is controlled by the Seraph, which are the protectors of Krita. Under attack. So we go into Concordia, but we're a little too late for Fort Salma, and unfortunately, Marjorie's sister dies at the attack of Fort Salma. After that, we go talk to the Pillow Tree again, and we ask for a summit of all leaders so we can discuss the issue that is Mordramoth. After doing some convincing to get the leaders to the summit, we then have to convince them that Mordramoth is actually a threat that's more important than what leaders are currently thinking is the major threat. Which, for the Norns, it's Jormag and the Sons of Svanir. For the Char, it's the Ascalonian Ghost Legions and Flame Legion. For the Ashura, it's the Inquest, which is, the humans, it's the Centaurs and the White Mantle. And Pilcher is just like, we kind of understand that it's a threat. So after convincing them, they get we are attacked by Mordramoth's minions, and get all the world leaders out of there. And then before we leave, the Pale Tree is badly hurt by this attack. It's like it's attacked her roots. She warns us and asks us to go find go to Glint's lair and find the egg. She shows us a vision. Before we can escape to safety, obviously, the Lieutenant of Mordramoth, the Shadow of the Dragon, a very, very terrifying beast, appears and starts attacking us. So we have to protect the Pale Tree, and probably one of the most annoying boss fights if you don't know how to do it. After that boss fight, we can finally get back down, and we tell the leaders all about what just happened, and we talk to our group about what just happened. Yeah. The Pact sets up a new camp in, Oh, I should know what this place is. I can't remember what it is. But they set up a new camp called Camp Resolve. We go there and talk to Traherne, saying that we might not be able to help with the cast-off, but we'll definitely try. And then we meet up with Marjorie and Casimir, and go into Glint's lair and learn more about the story of where the Master of Peace is guarding. Which is the last egg of Glint. So, yeah, that's fun. We make it back to Camp Resolve out of Glint's lair. Glint's lair is its own thing. That's like, it's annoying if you don't know how to do it. Meet up with Destiny's Edge. And tell them we're not going to be able to join with them. We have to go on our own path. And then we go after the Zephyrite Masters, who are the 3 masters of the elements under the Master of Peace. And they tell us where to go. And we do that. We go after the Master of Peace. Unfortunately, we're a little too late. And he dies. And before we can take the egg from him, Kaith takes the egg from us and disappears. So now we are just kind of empty-handed. We then go back to the Pale Tree when she's barely conscious, because she's still hurting after the first attack. Get some memory seeds from her and learn about Kaith's past, where she was one of the firstborns. Her love of Fowlin. By the way, yes, there are gay trees in here, which is awesome. The Asura experiments on the Sylvari. The Centaur camp where they met another firstborn, and then I don't want to. They killed a bunch of centaurs for no reason, because Fallon's an asshole. And then when Kaith was forced to kill Wynn, who was the other firstborn, because she revealed that in her dream she learned who the Sylvari are supposed to serve, and Wynn didn't want Fallon to know, so she told Kaith before Kaith killed her for mercy. And it's revealed in this case that the Sylvari are intended to be minions of Mordramoth. So that's fun. And they play it so well. I'll tell you why when we get there. Actually, I'll tell you just now. So after we get this revelation of that, we fight the shadow of the dragon, because we didn't kill it the first time. It just kind of ran away. And we killed it this time with the help of some fancy fire. Divine fire. And Kaith's gone with the egg again, because of course. We get a cinematic of the packed fleet of airships being completely destroyed. A lot of Sylvari turning on their friends because of the voice of the dragon. And we watch as Logan, Zoja, and Traherne and Air are all captured. Because at this point, Ridlock's... I forgot to mention that. Ridlock went to... As part of when we were trying to convince Smoder, the Imperator of the Black Citadel, to join, Ridlock was lost to the mists, because he's following a fire sword by the name of Sohathan. It's a whole thing. Yeah, the remaining members of Destiny's Edge are captured. And so when we get there, which is officially now Heart of Thorns, which is the first expansion, there is a severe distrust among Sylvari. Even if you're a Sylvari player, there is a little bit of distrust, but they're like, you're the commander, so we'll trust you. The pack's completely in pieces until you get there as the commander and you start bringing it back together. You get to the first part of the crash site, and you have to either fortify that area or go save other Sylvari, which you get an achievement if you're Sylvari and do either one of them. Ritlock comes back when you're desperately in need of him, and he hands ass to the Mordrim, which are Mordremoth's people. And then you also meet these adorable Hylics, which are generally kind of like frog people, but now they actually look like jungle frogs, and it's the fact that they did that is awesome. Although I think one of the subtitles says Hecates instead of Hylics, so that's a bit like, okay. With the help of the Hylics, we find the Mordremoth's prisons, because we heard that Air might be in one of them. And we do find Air and Fowlin. But unfortunately, Fowlin, being the asshole she is, because Fowlin gets her foot stuck in a root, because of course Air turns back around to help her because that's Air. Air then gets stabbed by Fowlin in the side while Fowlin escapes for a second, and then Air does an awesome throw of the thorn and stabs and kills Fowlin, or trips her up enough that the attacking minion can, which I can't remember what they're called. My brain is not working. I think it's a vine chaser or something. But unfortunately, at the same time, Air is stabbed through the gut, and Air is killed while Fowlin is taken away. So, Bram and Rox take off time to go give her her rights as a Norn, and we have lost Air, and it's still probably one of the saddest cinematics. We also don't know where Air's pet Garm is, so that's kind of fun. So we push forward into the next part of the jungle, where we finally find Kaith and the egg. But we also find the new and improved Fowlin, because remember, Sylvari are of Mordremoth, so Mordremoth remade her into the thing that killed her, and she's now horrifying. So we take the egg from Kaith, and with the help of the magic in the egg, the offspring in the egg, because it's bound to us immediately, because of course, we escape from Fowlin, and then we meet up with the Exalted, who are the technically ascended people that follow Glint, so technically ascended Zephyrite, and they put a place where we can protect them. There is some in the middle stuff. We find these new leyline creatures called the Chalk, which are the most annoying things in the world next to pocket raptors. We find an abandoned Rata, which Rata is the main cities of the Asuran, which is this one's Rata Novus that was studying Primordus, because Primordus caused the Asura to come out from where they used to be, which is inside the world. That's why they were kind of rats. They lived inside. But also in Rata Novus, we find the Dragon Lab, where they have all the rest of their information on the dragons in there. And Taime goes wild because, of course, she loves this stuff. So she stays there while we continue to fight. We finally make it to Logan and Zoja, who are being used to be made duplicates of duplicate plant Mordrim things. So we break them out of there. Zoja's in a pretty bad state. Logan's able to be walked. Casimir teleports them out of there to safety, and so they can go recover. And we we face off against Fowlin again. But this time we actually get to kill her, including Kaith. We put her to death, and we learn that the place that we are is Mordremoth's main base. So Mordremoth, we actually never get to see the full, I want to say, model of. We get to see a head model of him. Them. We don't get to see the full model like Zaitan, because they're just inside the ground. They are the jungle. So when we go into Mordremoth's main lair, we find the last missing member of our party that was taken when the pact was attacked, which is Traherne. At this point, Bram's back, by the way. Traherne is being used as a conduit for Mordremoth. So we use Traherne's power, to go into a version of the dream, which is where the Sylvari come from. Depending on the companions you choose to follow in with you, you fight certain bosses, and then you do a very, very long, very, very annoying boss fight with Mordremoth itself to kill him within its own mind. And you do that. But upon exiting the dream, you learn that Mordremoth is still barely, barely, barely alive within Traherne. And you take the broken Caladbolg, which is 5 steps away, and you put Traherne out of his misery and kill the last of Mordremoth. Which is also one of the saddest things I've seen, because Traherne's like your best friend throughout the entire thing. Yeah. So, one thing I didn't mention, but I should mention, well, I kind of mentioned, was that if you're playing a Sylvari character throughout this entire expansion, including as soon as you get to the first crash site, Mordremoth itself will actually start whispering to you. So I don't remember exactly what they said to you, but it's also feels like some of the, I'm sure it's not, but some of the dialogue from the wardroom that attack you seems very more like kind of trying to convince you to join Mordremoth, like give in and stuff. Because I know in the case of Zaitan, it's a very small detail, but Zaitan's minions will constantly say, "This one kill," or this one dies, because you would then become a minion of Zaitan. They would have all the knowledge they needed. Mordremoth's the same. Mordremoth's more of kind of come join the dragon, and we will take you to the dragon now. Stuff like that, and it's pretty fun. So while all of this is also happening, I'm pretty sure it's about the time so it's about the time, it's before you go to Radonovus, but during the memorial to Air, because there's that. Garm's also alive, by the way. Garm's fine. You decide to make up a new guild, not Destiny's Edge. You are now the leader of Dragon's Watch. Bram hates you for this, by the way. Bram absolutely hates you for this, because he feels like you're ignoring his mom's legend and so he's he reluctantly helps you a whole lot throughout this entire thing. You kind of lose contact with him, unfortunately, but with Dragon's Watch, you also go into living world, the next living world, which is between the two expansions, where you are going to Bloodstone Fen because there's been some reports of activity out there. And you practically die in an implosion. In this Bloodstone field, you learn that Codicus, who was the not so secret but totally secret leader of the White Mantle, who used to be Minister Codicus, he was like, ha ha ha, I have taken control of the White Mantle now, and they are mine, and we will take over Krita, and I will be on the throne, bullshit like that. But that's not what the White Mantle is all about. They're all about following I think they're called the Forgotten, but so when a forgotten person appears, Lazarus, Codicus is like, what? You can't be true. And Lazarus takes control of the White Mantle again, most of them, and leads them on a weird chase. I should also mention halfway through I want to say about Radanovus, wait for the plane to pass. So about the time with the Radanovus is when your egg will hatch. The egg that you saved from Cave. So you will now have a baby dragon by the name of Aurene, and she is adorable, and you want to protect her with your life. You are Aurene's champion. She is the Scion, as they call her. I just call her adorable. But yeah, so she kind of grows up with you as you're doing all this. Bram's still pissed off at you, so he stops talking to you for a while. Rox kind of goes to just watch his back to make sure he doesn't do anything reckless. But she's okay with you. And somewhere in the storyline, you reveal, thanks to Casimir, who is a mesmer, that Lazarus is not actually Lazarus, but Balthazar. And Balthazar, the war god. The god of war and fire of the humans. Which freaks out Casimir, so she disappears for a while. Balthazar hurts Marjorie, so she's out for a while. So it's just you, Ritlock, and Jaime for a bit. And instead of killing the dragons, because we've now learned that we can't kill the dragons because the world will implode, without the constant source of magic, we fight Balthazar and his hounds enough to save Primordus and Jormag. And that really does not help our situation with Bram. But we can't do much else. So Balthazar does not die, and he just disappears. And we're just kind of left with, we don't know what to do now. Until the second expansion, Path of Fire. Now, I'm not sure if there was any pre-events to any of this, but suddenly there is a bunch of Elonian refugees coming into Lion's Arch. And Captain Keel, who is one of your friends from Time of Scarlet, asks you to go to Alona and see how you can provide aid over there. Alona is another kingdom, or empire of the humans. Cantha is the last one, I'm pretty sure. So you arrive in Lona on an airship to find a pyramid on fire. The inside of a pyramid on fire. You go in and save these Elonians from what are called the Forged. And then you meet oh, I can't remember her name. I feel really bad now. A woman who is a forged who asks you to join Balthazar in destroying the dragons, which we know we cannot. So we chase her around Alona for a bit. We get our first mount, a raptor, and then finally make our way to Amnoon, which is the capital city. And from there we help around that area, attacking forged camps, and finally making our way to the Temple of Cormyr, who Cormyr used to be a sun spear of Alona, and that's why she's worshipped throughout all of Alona. There we meet Agent Quito of the Order of Shadows, which, yes, is an offshoot of the Order of Whispers. They separated because they had different methodologies. There, he tells us about what Balthazar is doing, which Balthazar is currently hunting Vlast, which is Oraine's brother. So that's fun. And so we race to go save Vlast from Balthazar. Balthazar doesn't like us very much. We kill, I don't think her name's Warden, but I'm going to call her Warden, the lady from the first town. And you finally kill her and release her because she's begging for release and asking you to kill her god. But obviously we can't fight a god. So Balthazar kind of just bitch slaps us to the ground, and Vlast sacrifices his life for us. So he explodes into a bunch of crystals. Balthazar disappears. And we kind of learn a story from Vlast's memory crystals. And we yet again go into Glenn's lair through a very long series of events and learn of the true purpose of Vlast and Oraine, that they are supposed to take over the role of Elder Dragon, because the current Elder Dragons are all insane. Before we go mention this to Oraine, we decide to try and talk to the rest of the human gods, the 5 others that are not insane. So we go to the Tomb of Primeval Kings. We fight 4 different kings and queens. And finally make our way into the Mists, which is basically the afterlife of this, and of Tyria. And in the Mists, we meet up with Cormyr, the actual goddess. And Cormyr tells us how Balthazar fell because he's, well, insane, but he's also very battle hungry and kind of full of himself. So they stripped his power and cast him into the mist where he couldn't get back out. Until Ritlock released him so that he could make Sohathan a flaming sword again. And they made their way out, and Balthazar followed. Ritlock made his way out, and Balthazar followed. Which was fun. But Cormyr also tells him that the way to defeat Balthazar is within his possession. So, yeah. After that, we follow clues to a place called Kesho. In Kesho, we find forged exalteds. Makes no sense, but trust me, it makes sense. And we also learn about Vlast and how he didn't have a champion like Oraine has you. And that's why he didn't really work. He wasn't prepared to take on any of the burdens that his mom wanted him to do. So we call our team, to meet us at a high plateau that Captain Keel's ship could dock with. And we go by ourselves up to go talk to them. And lo and behold, who's waiting for us at the top? And who cuts us off completely with a ring of fire is Balthazar. Because Balthazar has realized that we have a dragon. We don't know. I didn't know this the first time, and this was what made it fun. Is you fight Balthazar, and he is not an easy fight. I think every single time I do it, I die at least 10 times. But what he's saying throughout the whole fight, when you're down, of I'm not through with you yet, are you getting tired yet, stuff like that, and he's taunting you, which makes this all the more sad when Aurene comes to save you after you've beaten him down enough. But Balthazar captures her in his chains and does a final death blow on the commander, and you're dead. You actually die. Like I was mentioning in the SWTOR podcast, there are very few video games that do this and do it well. SWTOR and Guild Wars 2 are two of the ones that I can say. So, like, you'll actually go to a place called the Domain of the Lost. There you don't remember your name, you don't remember anything, so you literally, your screen is blank. The UI looks like it disappears, but it's not. So you meet up with a spirit and a gentleman that's a zombie basically that's captured in a cage, and his name is Palawa Joko. But there's also the spirit. The spirit tells you to ignore Joko, and she guides you to, what was his name? The judge, I think. The judge of the realm of the Domain of the Lost. And he tells us we need to reclaim our name and reclaim our, I don't think it's story, but it's something very similar to story. Our purpose. Our name and our purpose. So we go and find our weapons in a pile of trash, basically. We go and fight for our name back, which we literally fight about 4 different people. And then we follow this very nice trail. And it's a gorgeous storytelling there of a bird showing us our purpose. And I think it starts with Treherne and Claw Island, or Claim and Claw Island, and it goes till the current storyline. It's so good. Like, I wish I could record it, but I can't. So when we reclaim our name and our purpose, we go talk to the judge, and he's like, cool, now you can pass on. And we're like, wait, we can't, we need to go back. And he's like, well, I can't help you. But if you go kill this very, very powerful monster for us, we'll do it. So we go kill the Eater of Souls and make our way out. In which people still are kind of like Ritlock and a couple others are kind of like, no way, we tested you, you were dead. But we're like, yo, we're alive now. Canuck makes a remark that I need to go back and Canuck's put some bets on your head. He's gonna go double those bets because you can come back to life. But thanks to information from Joko, we learned that Joko has a huge army. And so we go and impersonate an Archon Iberu, who is the fallen Sunspear. We kill him and then impersonate him. And using Joko's army, we attack Balthazar and Balthazar's minions, the Forged. We personally, with Sohathan and Grasp, ascend to where Balthazar is, using Aurene to attack Kralkatork, which is such a cool thing. We destroy the machine holding Aurene, and then we kill Balthazar after a very long fight. And Balthazar explodes in magic and disintegrates. Aurene takes up some of the magic, and Kralkatork takes up the rest of Balthazar's magic. And then they both kind of disappear and you're just kind of dazed. So there's that. There's a bit of a lull. We go to a party at noon to kind of celebrate the fact that Balthazar's gone and he's no longer murdering people. After the lull, Noon gets attacked by Kralkatorrik, but while Kralkatorrik's nowhere near, it's a brandstorm, which basically means he's branding people and making them his minions. With the help of Oreen, Ritlock, and Canuck, you take back Noon the best you can, and then go to find a place that Oreen shows you in a vision called Faranor. So, the only people that know how to get in there are the Sunspears, who are still hidden because Joko's still around. And Joko now has put a gigantic bounty on your head. So, you make your way to the domain of Istan, meet up with the Sunspears. They tell you that their main Sunspear is captured by the Corsairs, which are a bunch of pirates, and you convince the pirates that you need to get into this Morden Crescent place so that you can get the Sunspear's leader out. And to do that, but when you're literally a prisoner and captured by the Corsairs, being given over to the Morden Crescent, which are basically the head fighters of Joko's army, Taimi calls you over the communicator, which you've had since Muguma, and she tells you that she's in trouble, but then you get knocked out and you lose your communicator. So when you leave with the Spear Marshal, get out of the prison, you make it up the stairs, fight the warden, and learn that Taimi's been captured by Joko, which is so heartbreaking. Like, the voice actress for Taimi is to sell that so well. It's because Taimi's a child. You don't want a crazy zombie man to capture a child. So we go to Faranor, which was the last place that Taimi went. We save Taimi and get saved by Bram by accident. Bram's still pissed off at us and even more pissed off at us now that Taimi was captured. And he begrudgingly helps us. And we go to an inquest, huge inquest lab to figure out what Joko is doing, B, to save Gorik and Blish, who are two of Taimi's friends. While during the rescue, we meet Gorik, who I think Gorik's somewhere on the autism spectrum, and Blish is an Asura in a golem's body because he also is chronically ill. And so with the help of Gorik and Blish, we get out of there, but unfortunately, because of the inquest, Joko has this very, very powerful plague called the Scarab Plague. The Scarab Plague nearly wiped out Alona years ago, and they finally got rid of it, and Gorik brought it back. So, now we are getting help from these Char, who are not part of the Legions. They're called the Ulmakan. I don't know their full story. I really should know more of their story. We have them. We have the spirits from the Primeval Kings. We have some humans. And we have some Savari, thanks to Canuck. Basically, we're all just attacking this main fortress called Gandara. I think it's called the Crescent Moon Fortress. And with Bram, because he's still mad at us, but he's still like, I'm not gonna let this happen. you both infiltrate Gandara and learn that Joko's a little obsessed with you because he's basically made copies of you over Awakened that he's killed in multiple gruesome ways. We fight our way through there, and we fight in the last room. We are captured, or you are captured by Joko. He kind of just goes, "You're an idiot," and then Bram knocks you out of the entanglement, and he gets himself captured, but then you fight Joko, which is a very fun fight. It's annoying. A lot of the boss fights, if you're doing it by yourself, are kind of annoying. Well, at the end of it, when you think you've killed Joko, because all the Awakened are kind of like dazed and they're confused, you and Bram are both captured, and Joko does this amazing speech that I could never replicate. Basically asking the commander who could be monumentally stupid enough to kill one elf dragon, let alone two, which are the lifeblood of Tyria. Why was it so easy for people to believe that I did all of your heroic feats instead of you? Basically making you out to be the villain, and it is such a good speech. I think one of the worst things he says to the commander is, "Haven't enough people died for you already?" Which is one of the weak points of the commander, is how many people have died for them. And I'll find a video of somebody that recorded it and link it in the description, because it's one of those things you have to watch and see how the voice actor for Joko pulled it off, and it was so good. It makes me shiver every single time. He also mentions that people would thank him for getting rid of you. But before he can, Orin comes out of nowhere and eats him. So Bram and you are safe. Joko's dead. And it's kind of a lull in everything, but they don't show this as the commander just yet, but you can kind of tell if you do the extra communications at the end, that she's been affected by what Joko said. Now she kind of I keep saying she because most of my characters are she. They put on a, like, I'm okay kind of mask, and keep going. Because now we have to turn our attention to the great Krakatork. Kralky, as I call him. So during the lull between Joko's death and everything else, the Free Awakened, the Mordant Crescent, the Sun Spirits, and the Order of Shadows are meeting, because they want to establish a treaty where they can live in their own little worlds separately. Unfortunately, Archon Beru, who is leading the Mordant Crescent, yes, he's back, don't ask how, tries to double cross, but then a hero from the past, Sun Spear Costajaran, I think his last name is, comes in and kills Aberu again, and the Morning Crescent just stop. And then the entire thing is just erupted by the Shatterer's return. The Shatterer is a lieutenant of Krakatork, where in all technicalities you've already killed him in the Char's, one of the Char's starting areas. He was one of the world bosses in that area because the Char are the most affected by the Krakatork. Anyway, he comes back. Shatterer comes back, chasing Orin, because Orin has crashed the assembly before Archon and Barrow double crosses. And we kind of learn that Krakatork's in the mist, bringing worlds in. So, like, there's a part of Orion history. There is otherworldly mushrooms in one spot. There is Maguma randomly in the middle of a desert. I'm part of Maguma, because it has chalk. So then with Kosin, who was the Order of Whispers agent, and Bram's pretty much okay with you now. There's still a little tension there, but it's much better than it was before, thanks to Joko. We go into an old Sunspear sanctum, which is officially called Sun's Refuge, and we defeat a bunch of spiders out of it, light Cormyr's flame, and then use it as a refuge for a lot of people because it's under so much bedrock that Kralkatorrk's branding can't reach it, so yay. But there's a part that's not under too much bedrock, and that's when the branded come through a mist portal, and we have to fight them back, but who comes out to help us is Ghostly Air and Ghostly Snaff. I mentioned earlier the Snaff was part of the original Destiny's Edge that died with Glint. Snaff was Zosha's mentor. So they return, talk to Aurene that it's her time to take over as the Elder Dragon, and Aurene, who has the power of prophecy from her mother, sees multiple versions of it, and each of them end with her dying. So she freaks out and flies away. Which is, she's still a baby, and I feel for her, and she's my favorite, and yeah, but they do it so well. But Blish, who's now your best friend, comes up with an idea so that they can make it basically an early warning system for where Kralkatorrk is going to be. So we head off to go find Balthazar's sword, which we find it, attach a tracker to it, and then Blish and you go into the mists, and with Glenn's help, get Kralkatorrk to swallow the sword. But Kralkatorrk's brandstorm messes with some of Blish's machinery on the sword, the tracking thing, and Blish has to stay behind. And like I keep saying with all these deaths, they make it impactful. It's not just, oh, he's dead now. No, it's Blish tells us that we can't be hiding secrets from each other anymore. So when the commander returns and has to face Taimi, who loved Blish, and Gork, who is Blish's brother, she mentions what Blish wanted, and Taimi reveals that her chronic illness that was in remission is no longer in remission, and she's getting sicker. And it's such a heartbreaking thing, and I'm actually starting to cry right now. So we push forward. Gork needs some time to himself, which is very understandable. So with the news of that, we head for Thunderhead Keep, where the dwarves are, because apparently they're not all wiped out. From there, Aurene and the commander do another trial, and we learn how to make the Dragon's Blood Spears, and how to fight Kralkatorrk. And while we're doing this, Aurene shows a new power that she's developed, which is, I don't know what they actually call it. I call it crystallizing, which is a form of branding. And Canuck, Bram, and Ritlock are terrified of the fact that she can do that now. I'm just like, really? She's helping us. And Aurene finally kind of just roars to get our attention, and Kaith walks forward to Kaith, who took care of her while she was in the egg, walks over, and she becomes crystallized. So she's now a crystal bloom. So she turns from green to blue, and she can now speak for Aurene. And Aurene says the first words of, "I am not him." And it's kind of actually terrifyingly powerful. So we prepare for Kralkatork, but it's not enough. We fight him. We literally drop a mountain on him. We fight him with, or them, sorry. No, technically he's a him. They call him him throughout the entire thing. We drop a mountain on him, throw bombs at him, dragon blood spears made from his branding, but not his blood, because that's a distinction we need to make. But at the end, Kralkatork turns his face to where you and Aurene are, and roars at us, which was supposed to be a death blow for us, or for you, the player commander. But Aurene protects us and gets branded. So we wake up in a state of confusion and pain and weakness, and we actually, it forces you to walk, and stumble and breathe deeply and stuff. We make it to where the group is crying. Timy's crying at her eyes out. Bram meets us and helps us to this group, and we see Aurene that's branded. And the first time I did it with one of my characters, I literally had to walk away from the computer because I was crying so much. Even though I knew there was another chapter after this. I'm like, I know it doesn't end, but it's so much. Kaith is there, and all her flowers have wilted. She's still blue, but all of her flowers have wilted. And we just kind of mourn, and they ask, I think Bram asks us, "What do we do now, Commander?" And the commander replies, "I don't know." Or he says that the commander will have a plan. She always has a plan. And the commander says, "No, not this time," or something like that. It's something similar to that, and it's very powerful because of what Joko said. I think it'd come back to hit them. So, the next chapter, we obviously return to Aurene, where she's branded, with everybody crying over her, and the Zephyrites sing to her final thing, as a final kind of farewell. And we can meet, after Kaith takes a branded shard out of about where Aurene's heart is. Kaith and the commander can feel a little hint from Aurene, like there's a heartbeat. And so the Zephyrites sing, and we blast the crystal with a certain frequency, and Aurene's alive. She's fine. And as she says, because she's no longer needs to speak through Kaith, she can speak on her own now. Eating a lich has its upsides. And yeah, so she came back to life because Joko's had undead magic that could bring him back to life. So she's fine. And we learn how to fight Kralkatork. So you jump on Aurene's back because she's just barely big enough for it. And fly into a mist portal and then follow Kralkatork and force him out of the mist, bringing some parts of Grunt's mist, Melandru's, and Balthazar's god domains into the real world, and making Kralkatork crash into the middle of the ocean, where he is unfortunately eating some ley lines, so he's recovering, but at a very slow rate. After that, you run around to collect supplies so you can make a Kralkatork dragon's blood spear. So you're making it out of his blood now, so it's his frequency, because that's the way you kill him, is matching his crystal frequency to himself. Because that actually makes sense. So we make sure that he has no supplies with the ley lines. We've stopped all of them. But we can still feel his heartbeat, so he's still alive. So Aurene and you dive quite literally down his throat. And we learn that Kralkatork, Aurine's grandfather, is tormented by the magics of Zaitan, Mordramoth, and Balthazar because he absorbed the magic, but it's too much for him. So we fight all three of them to kind of beat them down enough that we can get access to his heart. And with Aurine's word, we do the final blow to Kralkatork's heart and give a mercy to the Elder Dragon, because he's actually talking to us the whole time. And Aurine absorbs all the magic from Kralkatork and ascends to being an Elder Dragon herself. So now Aurine is the Elder Dragon of Light and Crystal, and she is gorgeous, and I love her. And there's a gorgeous epilogue where you and Bram fully make up, because he had to have a chat with his mom before he realized, oh, yeah, we're kind of family, aren't we? And it's amazing. And then they... and into the next living world, which is called the Icebrood Saga. And let me tell you, this is going to be a roller coaster. So, at the beginning of the Icebrood Saga living world, we are... I don't think we're officially invited, but we were technically invited to a gathering of the Char Legions, including Flame Legion, because Flame Legion is trying to, thanks to Bengar, Runebringer, Flame Legion, part of the Flame Legion is trying to join with the other Char Legions, and it works. So there's now 4 Char Legions. They do a whole celebration because Kralkatork said, because Kralkatork was the main bad guy for them, their main bad dragon for them. And they do a commemorative fighting of the last branded monster, which unfortunately Aurine has terrible timing and destroys the branded item. The branded devourer, I think it was. And so Bengar is none too pleased with our dragon and tells us to keep it on a better leash, which we can't with that Elder Dragon. And then we also meet Ryland, Steel Catcher or Steel Chaser, it's one of those two, who is Ritlock's son. Well, son-ish. Char have a different definition of that, so Ritlock is Ryland's sire, but not son because he didn't raise him. They have a Ferrar and stuff like that. So Ryland and Bram kind of have a run around while we try to keep morale up. Bram gets fucking knockout drunk, even for a Norn, and he loses his enchanted bow that was supposed to be used against Dormag. And yeah, we try to settle that and try to settle the new Flame Legion down, because some Blood Legion troops were talking to the cubs and scaring them. Britlock, yourself, and Krisha, who is Ryland's mom? I don't know if they have a proper name for him. I guess technically another sire, but Krisha try to bring some worries to Bengar because they're like, there's something going on and it's not great. And he just kind of ignores it and makes very snide remarks to Ritlock about not being Char and not being here when he needs to be. And it's really sad. But he's doing it in a way that very recognizable as an abusive relationship. And it's very fun. We have to go save Gork because some people have roughed him up enough to take his information, because they thought that he had information on the dragons. He did not, because he's not into dragons, he's into bugs. And then we have to pursue Ryland, Bangar, and the Renegades because they are going after Jormag because we needed that. So we follow them as far as we can, and we tell the Imperators of each legion what Bangar, Ryland, and the Renegades were doing, and we kind of just have to wait. So we eventually follow Bram to a vigil keep called Jorah's Keep, and there we find it completely decimated. The keep is still there, but the people are dead. Everybody's dead, including some sons of Svanir that were in there. And that's when Jormag starts to whisper to us and to Bram, because Bram's kind of our go-to person for this one, like Redlock was for the other ones. So Jormag's telling us, you look kind of tired, maybe you should sit down and have some rest, stuff like that, because he's persuasion. So we fight our way, we find Jorah, we rescue Jorah from the Sons of Svanir, but we learn that Almora Soulkeeper, who is the leader of the vigil, is nowhere to be found, and she was separated from Jorah and the Sons of Svanir. So then we are sent to go find what happened at Almora, and unfortunately we find Almora purposely buried underneath a bunch of rubble with her sword sticking out, and unfortunately Almora is dead. Which leaves Jorah, I think, in charge of the vigil, or Larenthir, but Larenthir is kind of is missing. So we are then fighting a Freyr, which is kind of the head shaman of Jormag's armies. And Freyr, who is one of the voices of Jormag speaks to the Freyr in the creepiest cinematic that could be possibly made. Thanks, Aina, for giving me nightmares. And he gives the commander and Orane an offer, because Jormag wants to stop all the fighting, and they want to keep the world safe from their twin, which is another thing that's going to come up. And at the very end of the cinematic, which I will also post in the description, Bram asks us a question like, we're not really seriously considering this offer, are we? And I thought at first that it was maybe an accident, or I hoped it wasn't an accident, that I really liked it. But I read on the wiki recently that it was not an accident, but the commander hesitates before saying, right. That's right. And I'm just like, oh, they actually put a hesitation in there, which is awesome, because it shows the kind of the mind frame of the commander right now. Because I'm going to keep calling it she. She is exhausted. The commander's completely exhausted. Like, how many dragons do you have to kill for this? So we continue. Bram goes on his own for a little bit. We find Garm, who is Air's wolf, and then we find Bram and save him from some Svanir. We find Ritlock and Krisha, who were scouting ahead, and they are captured by the Kodins. And the Kodins tell us all about Jakar, who is the mouthpiece of Jormag, the official mouthpiece of Jormag, and we need more power before we go fight him. So Bram goes to quote-unquote free the corrupted spirits of the wild, Ox, Eagle, and Wolverine, and we help him. So Bram now has the power of these three corrupted, Jormag corrupted spirits of the wild and talks with Wolf. Wolf tells him, hey, you can have my power, but it's always been in you. You just need to know how to release it. Fun stuff like that. And we finally go and face Jakar and the Whisperer of Dormag, which unfortunately results in us fighting Krisha and Ritlock because they've fallen to the Whispers of Dormag, albeit temporarily. And at the end of this all, while we're fighting, we knock out Krisha and and Ritlock. Bram is a little bit knocked out, and we fight the Whisper one-on-one in this kind of different scenario. And they keep repeating the offer of Dormag that they just want to protect the world. They just want to keep the world the same. They could be allies, stuff like that. And when we finally defeat the Whisper, we come out of this and are faced by Bengar, who is carrying Bram's bow, I should mention. And we kind of try and talk some sense into Bengar that he can't control an Elder Dragon. We don't control Aurene. This is completely insane. And Bengar rewards us by shooting us with an arrow. And the commander, I don't want to say dies, but basically is like in a state where they're almost dead. And in this cinematic, Bram finally wolfs out, and that's pretty fun. But yeah, no, we basically die until we are brought to the Eye of the North, because Aurene, who we are still the champion of, directs our friends there, and they put us in a pool to heal, and we're alive, yay. So there's kind of a lull there. We talked to Aurene, and she was like, yeah, I try to talk to my uncle, but it doesn't really work, and yeah, it's kind of weird. So kind of in the middle of all this thing, we learn about the Steel Warband, which is Ryland's warband, and what happened to them, and then what happened between Bengar, Ryland, and Almora, because Almora tried to stop Bengar as well from trying to do the Fool's Crusade of controlling Dormag, and Ryland was forced to kill Almora because he was following orders. So that's great. We finally also have the United Legions, which are Blood, Iron, Ash, and Flame finally all together in one thing. We learned Cinder Steel Temper, which is, I don't want to say Ryland's love interest, but probably unofficial love interest, is murdered by Smodor because Smodor is an asshole. He's the leader of the Black Citadel, but he's completely an asshole. Which is kind of... we also bomb a couple of the Dominion, because the Dominions are the renegades, but yeah, we bomb some of the Dominion people. We murder Cinder while she has no way of fighting back. So in my notes I put breaking the Geneva Convention just a little bit. And at the very end of this all, the Dominion becomes the Frost Legion. Because guess what? Now they're frost people. They're frost char, so they're frost kitties. Yeah. So led by Ryland and Bengar still, the Frost Legion rises. And yeah, we're just kind of like, crap. So, while we're trying to figure out how to fight the Frost Legion now, imbued with the power of Dormag, we learn we try to get to Bengar and Ryland before they can fully awaken Dormag, because Dormag's a little awake but not fully awake. And during all this, because we have to go to 3 or 4 different temples to prove ourselves for Bram to enter an ancient Norn temple. One of them was Eagle, I think it was the original 3 that were corrupted. we are turned into an eagle, and we have to prove ourselves by flying through some rings, so it's very hilarious. But while we're flying through this, Ritlock tries to get our attention to ask us a question, and it's kind of just like, you almost expect it to kind of give you a voice line, but it doesn't, and it literally just says annoyed eagle screech. And that's the voice line you get, and it works so well because of how tired the commander is. And Relax, it's like, I'll talk to you later, actually. Yeah. Well, just before we go for all this stuff for the Norn Temple, Smodor is assassinated by Ryland. And yeah, we're attacked by the Dominion forces that are not the Frost Legion yet. And yeah, so we have all that fun stuff. Ephraim takes Smodor's place as the leader of the United Legions, just for temporary. Ephraim, who is the leader of the Flame Legion. And yeah, it's fun. We learn, because there are 4 spirits of the wild that sacrificed their lives. Owl was one of them. Owl, who only gave partial power to Jormag and then fled into the mists. We unfortunately, with opening the North Temple, brought Owl back, and were forced to kill Owl. Jormag fully awakens. Bengar is given his wish of helping Jormag by becoming the voice of Jormag. So he's put on a leash, which is totally what he deserves. And Ryland, comes out of nowhere and becomes the official champion of Jormag, because that was actually unexpected. And yeah. After all that's fun's over, we learn that Primordus is awakening. Primordus and Jormag, as I said earlier, are twins. Jormag refers to Primordus as he, him all the time. And despite everything, even our hatred towards Jormag is they, them. And the fact that they keep that going is pretty cool. We run around all of Tyria fighting Primordus with Ryland a couple of places, and then Ryland and Jormag kind of go, well, we can preserve everybody. It's like, that's not bad. By freezing everybody and completely, yeah, so they freeze a couple of places before we can get there. And now we're fighting against Primordus and Jormag. We go and save the remainder of Flame Legion from Primordus' minions. And then Bram makes a choice. And it shocked me the first time I did this, because we're actually playing Bram while we're doing this, because Orion's like, look, this is what happened while you were gone. I need to show you this. Bram takes the 4 spirits of the wild, bear, wolf, raven, and snow leopard, and goes into the same volcano where we stopped Balthazar from destroying Primordus and Jormag. And Bram gives himself over to Primordus with the help of the spirits of the wild to try and not really calm Primordus, but kind of focus him. And Bram becomes Primordus' champion by choice. Which is the first time I saw that, I was like, no! And so we do see Bram again when the Frost Legion starts attacking the Flame Legion when we were saving them. So that's fun. And that's kind of where we are right now. I don't know what more they're planning for Icebrood Saga. Hi, editing Vanna here. So I try to get these podcasts out as fast as I can record them, but finals got in the way of actually releasing the podcasts. So a week went by, and it's probably another week before it's actually edited. But the final chapter of Champions came out, which is the story part of the Icebrood Saga, and it finished off the story. So, a lot of the things I said before kind of just got yeah. So, I'm going to explain what happens in the last chapter. Aurene and Timey come up with an idea to get Jormag and Primordus in the same area by cutting off their connection to the ley line in a very certain spot. So we do that, and then Ryland and Bram come to defend the spots, and then we have to beat them down, and Jormag and Primordus both appear. Obviously just their heads. I'm not sure if it's just the modeling of this time, because I'm sure it looked like it was a little bit rushed. No offense seeing it. Primordus was significantly smaller than the original couple times we've seen him. Jormag was also a little smaller, but their size kind of changes. So we beat Ryland and Bram a couple of times, and then finally weakened Jormag and Primordus enough that with Aurine's magic, that sending beams at them, Jormag and Primordus clash. We're obviously rescued from the mayhem by Aurene. And then we go and assess the damage. See if Bram and or Ryland survived. Which, to be fair, the cinematic is gorgeous of Jormag and Primordus killing each other. Originally, I thought I messed up and I somehow saved Ryland and killed Bram or something, and it was not that. When we're coming back, we find Bram stuck under some ice, but he's back. He's no longer Primordus. The spirits of the wild are fine. They're off resting. Bram is completely back to normal, albeit a little tired and probably in pain. And then we find Ritlock and Krisha confronting Ryland, who is still a little crazy. And Ritlock is forced to kill Ryland to protect Krisha, which is so sad. My phone can stop going off, that'd be awesome. It's definitely a very emotional scene. Ritlock's voice actor is a little different in this one, but I can't tell if that's just because they changed voice actors or the voice actor just couldn't pull off Ritlock's voice this time. So that's kind of what happens. Aurene takes in as much magic from Jormag and Primordus as she can, but she says that some of it doesn't go into her and it just kind of goes through her. So there's now the question of where did this magic go? So Ryland's dead, Bram's alive, weak but alive. Bengar collapsed and lost all the dragon corruption and was rushed to a medic tent. As far as we know, he's alive, which I'm not too happy about, but whatever, he can go face Legion Justice. That's kind of where we are. They have told us the third expansion, which is the End of Dragons, which I will talk about soon, but I'm going to keep talking about Jormag for a little bit. So Jormag, initial whispers to the commander are only in the first chapter of the Icebrood Saga, when we're going through Jorah's Keep trying to save Jorah. After that, it's kind of like minor taunting. But after Bengar becomes the voice of Jormag, and we bring him back to the Eye of the North in a special cage, he mentions that Jormag only whispers to get what they want. So did Jormag put the commander in a position that they feel comfortable with? They can manipulate the commander? Or is it because the whispers weren't working? Hi, this is Editor Vanna. I just was thinking about why Jormag stopped talking to the commander. Ignore the noises in the background. I'm trying to work around them. Um, but I kind of realized that, of course, Dormag would not be able to talk to the commander after we killed Jakar, which was his voice, or their voice, my apologies. Because, obviously. And then by the time Dormag got another voice, we've locked said voice, Bengar, into a cage where or Bengar could not speak and Dormag could not listen to us, and thus Oreen allowed it. So that kind of helps with the whole thing. And Dormag does speak to you during the meta events, which are the big events of the area you're questing in. So up until killing Jakar, my apologies, Dormag will whisper to you that it's just defending itself. Why are you attacking a harmless thing? It wants to help you and stuff like that. And I've also, unfortunately, said the main vigil helper. I kept calling her Jorah throughout the entire thing. The name is actually Javi, who is Jorah's daughter. Javi, Jorah's daughter. And I think, if I remember correctly, Jorah was the first son of Svanir, the first one to give themselves over to Dormag for power. So she has that unfortunate legacy on her name. So, but her name is actually Javi. But also, it kind of highlights the exhaustion of the commander and the lack of hope the commander has. Because I mentioned with Joko kind of hit the commander hard with what he was saying, with like, you're really not the hero in this story. You're really not the person that should be getting all this praise. A lot of people have died for you. You've practically put the world into this dark place. And so, between Dormag and Joko, I think, unfortunately, the commander's losing faith in his or herself. They don't have hope. They're losing all their friends slowly. Like, Bran was one of their best friends, and Bran's gone. Taimy's dying still. Casimir and Marjorie barely show up. We kind of only have Redlock, and even then Redlock's kind of fighting with himself. So I think I'm really excited to see where ANET takes us and see if what my guesses are true. My hopes for the third expansion, it was mentioned that it was started back in March 2020, which we all know that was kind of the nasty year. It is mentioned that we are going to Cantha. We are going to find a dragon, as per the trailer, by the name of Kuva Young, and we're gonna go, who is related to Shiro. If you're Revenant, you know Shiro is the assassin form, and he's probably the only form I use. And my main character is a Revenant. But my only guess is, because if you look at the logos of Guild Wars 2 for each of these expansions, that's related to what dragon's being kind of shown. And the dragon for expansion 3, End of Dragons, is water. So do we finally get the mysterious Elder Dragon of Water, and that's the name, that's not just S? Do we have something more coming there, or is it water because Primordius and Jormag are fighting each other? What do we have there? I'm also excited to see what Cantha brings. From the images I'm seeing, it's very Asian inspired. I don't want to say Asian because that sounds bad, but Asian kind of. I maybe Japanese inspired, but the architecture is very much like that. They have very unique dragon styles because Kuvang looks like I can't remember if it's Chinese and Japanese dragons. It's one of them. An Asian dragon that has like, it doesn't have legs. It's just a serpent. That's what they were showing Kuwang as. And I'm quite excited to see what comes up with this. Definitely gonna put money where my mouth is and definitely play End of Dragons, but I'm thing. So yeah. If you made it this far, how and why? There's no point. I do want to thank you for that, for coming this far. The next episode will be on something I have yet to decide on. And I do want to thank you if you did stick out this long, because I know my voice can kind of get monotone and annoying. But I do hope, if you do have any games you want me to review, look at their storyline, stuff that's like that, I might be looking into playing Fable for a bit. But yeah, I do hope you continue to stay epic.